Hey, Launch family. In today's episode, we're speaking with Thembi Bheka. She is an incredible launch story, and I am so excited for you to hear it. She moved from her home country of Zimbabwe to Canada with only $5 in her pocket. And since then, she has built massively successful businesses and executed a ton of six-figure launches. But what's special about Thembi's story isn't just the success that she's had in business, although we do talk about some tactical stuff around pricing and we do get into some of the marketing meat and potatoes here, but it's about how positive an impact she's making in the world through her business. I am super stoked for you to hear this interview. Now, just a quick reminder, hit subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes, and it really helps our channel keep on growing. Also, if you haven't yet, go to getyouLaunched.com, as we have just started our annual launch masterclass. This is the absolute best free training that you can get on launching anywhere in the world. Jeff is only doing this once a year, and it started on August 15th and it goes all the way till August 29th. This is the only time of year where Jeff will have this free training on. So if you haven't registered yet, do that now. Go to getyouLaunched.com and register for the Launch Master Class. Now here's today's Dare to Launch.
The journey is never smooth. There's always going to be some hiccups and some detours. But do you stop at a detour or do you just take the longer route and just keep going? You're going to fall down. You just have to get up. And it's not how many times you fall, it's how many times you get up and you keep going. You are wondering how much you should charge for your clients? Look at your program and say, how can it change lives? You could charge $1 million for PLF and you could get away with it. Well, you missed an important part. I became a launch club spokesperson. I thought I was resilient until I met these women. You just need to have a mentor, you need to have a community, and you also need to keep going and never give up.
Hello, Launch family. This is Dare to Launch. My name is Chris. And as always, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Jeff Walker.
Hey, everybody.
And today we have a very special guest. She's an entrepreneur, a speaker, and an expert in empowering dreams, transforming lives, and inspiring people to go after their higher purpose. She's a member of Jeff's Launch Club Mastermind group. Thembi, welcome to Dare to Launch.
Thank you so much for having me.
We are so excited to have you on. You've now built several successful businesses. And I think if people really understood like where you are now versus where you started, I mean, that kind of story is just inspiring to people. What does it really take from maybe a mindset or a mentality for entrepreneurs to overcome that kind of adversity and go from really where they're at the very beginning stages with nothing to create something massive and big and impactful in the world?
I think it all starts with a dream. When I'll share this. When I was in high school, everybody in my school was applying to the local universities. And I applied to a University of Hull in England. I've never been to University of Hull. My parents could barely afford my school fees. So for me to even think of going to University of Hull, it was just a dream. But I had this dream from the young age to say, I'm not just going to be a regular Joe. I'm going to go to University of Hull. I never went to University of Hull. I did end up getting a scholarship to McGill University in Canada. But really, it was just that dream of saying, I am not going to do that. But also not just dreaming, because dreaming is not enough. I think a lot of people dream and leave it there. Say, oh, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. It is the steps you take. Because when you take the action steps and think, what is the worst that could happen? That is my life mantra. What is the worst that could happen? Like, if I apply to Hull and they turn me down, so what? If I go to Canada with $5 and they turn me at the border, so what? I've got nothing to lose anyways. I might as well just try it. And I think a lot of people don't try. They get stuck in the process of dreaming and fear, and just that holds them back. But you have to take that next action step and say, what's the worst that could happen?
It's almost an asset when you have very little to actually say, hey, I have very little right now. There's nothing to lose. I think some entrepreneurs, I mean, as you started to build something and as you started to get more, did you maintain that same mindset that like, I have nothing to lose, even when you kind of did have stuff to lose? Because there's still risk when you're launching a business and you've already got like, you know, a house, or you've built a business that's successful now. You have things that could lose by taking those risks. Do you still have that mentality?
Yeah, I quit my nursing job. I was an ICU nurse with a pension coming up, and I quit that to what is the worst that could happen? And for me, I look at the journey before and think, I mean, I came to Canada with $5. What is the worst that could happen? Even when I moved, right now I'm in Africa. When I moved to Africa, I was scared. I was like, what's going to happen in Africa? But I thought to myself, whichever situation, I'm not going to go back to where I was 20 years ago. I'll be so much better off. And I think if you can look at that and say, 20 years ago, now I have so much knowledge. That knowledge is power. And I can just take that and reuse it and build something else. I go through this every day. I take risk. I'm a risk taker.
Thembi, so you were a nurse, and then your first business that you built was built around real estate. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And so it strikes me because and then you went from real estate to digital marketing to teaching real estate. What was that jump like?
When I moved from nursing to real estate, it kind of was an easy transition because I had bought quite a few properties and I was in a comfortable position. But I got to the stage where I was feeling like empty. I remember driving and turning into my house, into the drive. I was listening to a podcast, and somebody said at that time, like, if you have the ability to make more money and you are not making money to help other people, you are selfish. And I remember thinking, yeah, I kind of feel like that. And so I started digging deeper to say, what can I do other than wake up and go to the beach and check if I can get a new property? What can I do? And so that transition, I would say, wasn't too hard, but it was hard in the sense that it was a new territory. I mean, I remember the first email I sent. English is not my first language. I didn't know that you had to capitalize I's. So I sent an email with small letter I's, and somebody emailed me back and was yelling, basically, not happy with my English. And so I didn't know, there was no Grammarly at that time. But really, I did that. But you know what's funny? With that first launch, I made 6 sales. I made 6 sales with my little small I's, which were not capitalized. Mm.
That's hilarious. There's grammar police everywhere, right? Wow.
And you look online right now, and there's so many people that, and I get it. I can remember when I was just starting out, and you have all these questions about how things work or what you should do, and yet here you are sending an email where you're not capitalizing I, and yeah, miraculously that action still drove 6 sales. I mean,
yes, that's what I'm saying. Like, what is the worst that could happen? Yes, that person yelled at me for my bad English and grammar, but at the end of the day, I started a business. I'm able to keep empowering more people with that business, despite my language challenges. So there's people who have excuses, and I think really there is no excuse. Like, you have no excuse. You just have to take action, and you just have to keep going, because there's nothing worse that could happen.
When something does happen that you don't want, like, so you get that email from someone who's, hey, you're supposed to use capital letters, or, when maybe an email doesn't resonate the right way, or a launch goes sideways or something like that.
Or you get on a podcast and your internet goes up because you're in Africa.
The question I have there is, like, what are you saying to yourself in those moments? Because you say you just have to keep going, but I think a lot of people, when they encounter even sometimes minor bumps in the road, they take it as evidence that this is maybe the wrong direction to go, or that they're not worthy of getting this result, or something to that effect. Like, what are you saying to yourself at that moment to be able to get past it and keep moving forward?
I am fortunate in the sense that I grew up with nothing. I grew up in a household where every night my mom would be like, what are we going to eat tonight? And because of that, even though it looks like it was a horrible situation at that time, but I look back and I think that really prepared me and gave me the resilience to just keep going and never give up. And I know that it can be difficult for somebody who grew up with everything and they've never been in a situation of lack to think this didn't work. But what I can tell you is that in entrepreneurship or even in school, you have to be persistent. A kid doesn't give up walking because they fell. You're going to fall down. You just have to get up. And it's not how many times you fall, it's how many times you get up and you keep going. You know, I remember teaching my son how to bike when he was young. He inspired me so much because he would fall on his bike and he would get up. And I can't bike. I still can't bike because I fell one time and I was like, I'm never going out there. But my son, you know, he kept getting up and getting up and getting up. And now he's such a good biker. You know, he's doing so well. And yet, because I gave up, here I am, I can't even cycle. So it's really like, it's not about how many times you fall, because there's going to be challenges. Even though we're speaking right now, this journey hasn't been smooth. And you probably both know the journey is never smooth. There's always going to be some hiccups and some detours. But do you stop at a detour or do you just take the longer route and just keep going? And I think that's really what I would say to somebody who's thinking of giving up. Like, you cannot give up. Think of the end result. Think of how your life is going to change, how the life of other people are going to change, and how your children's life is going to change. As I'm speaking right now, my son is now editing my videos. And it's like, this is something I could never think of, hiring an 11-year-old to edit my videos. And now he has a job. He knows ChatGPT left, right, and center. It's so impressive to see that and to see that inspiration I have inspired in my children by not giving up. So think of the people you let down by giving up, really.
And I hear so much about that big vision too, right? The dream, like maintaining something bigger than yourself that you really want to go for. Would you call that your purpose? Is that like what you consider like your main, like you have to have a purpose to really go after it? Or is that a dream? Is that different?
No, I think a dream and a purpose are different. A dream is something you aspire to do, and your purpose is something that keeps you going. That keeps you going. You can let go of a dream, but it's hard to let go of a purpose. When you have a bigger purpose, when you have that bigger calling or that big why, as other people call it, where you feel like it's so big, it's like nagging, it keeps nagging at you. I shared earlier on how I had achieved this success in real estate and I just felt this emptiness. And it brought me back to this purpose I had written many years ago on that plane ride to Canada, saying I'm going to empower women. That purpose came back when I was in that gap of lack, or that gap of rather feeling lost. And it's going to come back to you and say, nag you and nudge you and say, hey, remember me? You said you're going to empower women. Where are we with that? You know, and you just keep going back to that. It's completely different than a dream.
How did you know? Like, did that purpose just come to you because of your story, or was it like, did you decide that purpose?
It was my journey. It was my story. I think purpose comes from your story. It comes from your experience, and maybe it comes from your surroundings. Like, what did you experience growing up? What surroundings did you see? What things, I would want to use the word, drove you nuts? Like, what are those things which you wanted to change? And sometimes there could be positive things. Sometimes there could be negative things. Things like seeing your parents working every day and not even making enough to pay the bills. That could also stem into like, you know what, I will never have this, and I'm going to make sure other entrepreneurs are not going to have this lifestyle, or other people are not going to have this lifestyle.
Yeah, I like to think of that like as, there's going towards values and going away from values. Both can be very, very powerful, but that going away from can be super powerful motivator.
That's how, I'll tell you, going back to the bike riding, that's how I learned to ride a bike. I was kind of a late bloomer when it came to riding a bike. It's a little embarrassing, but like I honestly remember, for years, I was just on the training wheels, training wheels, training wheels, training wheels. And I got to the point where I was like way too old to be on training wheels. You know what I mean? And then I started to care a lot about what other people thought of me, and like the shame of being around my friends and being seen on training wheels was what that going away from value of like, no, I don't want to be seen as a kid anymore. I don't want to be seen as someone who can't do this. And then my friends being able to go and bike around, I was like, I have to learn this right now. And I remember just one day getting in onto my bike over and over and over and over again. And yeah, fallen a few times, but like by the end of the day, you know, with my dad's help, basically, I was able to bike. And, you know, I think there's so much in the kind of journey where people don't, you know, if they there are things that are negative that can really motivate you, if that makes sense, like being avoiding pain or trying to get away from those things, and knowing where those things are to be able to focus your time and energy where it's like, no, this must happen now because I do not ever want to go through this pain again. I mean, how often does that happen, right?
Yeah. And to that point, actually, Chris, I think a lot of people don't feel the pain enough. That's why they stay stuck in their same environment. Because when you really feel the pain, when it really, really nudges you and triggers you, you're going to get up. You're going to just keep going. You're going to fall on that bike and you're going to keep going. So think, when you're even thinking of giving up, think, do I really want to go back to training wheels? Or should I just get up and go?
No. And the scars we get from those falls, right? They just become part of our story, part of what makes us good and reminds us what we need to do to be successful, I think.
Chris, I'm not going to go into it now because I think one training wheel story for is enough, but I've got my own story that's somewhat similar to yours.
Oh, yeah.
About training wheels way too long. Thembi, you moved to Canada. You built up a business. You became a nurse. You're an IC nurse. You started investing in real estate. You were successful there. You started training on real estate. You came into the digital marketing world. You came into my world. You started doing launches. You built up that business. And then you moved back to Zimbabwe. And could you just talk a little bit about that decision and why you did that?
Well, you missed an important part. I became a launch club spokesperson.
Yes, you were. Yep. For those who don't know the context, I'm sorry, Thembi, for forgetting that piece. I have this very high-end coaching program called Launch Club. And we haven't done this since COVID, but pre-COVID, we would have a big event and we have this very extensive competition to become the Launch Club spokesperson of the year. And in doing that, you did a launch. You had to fill out all kinds of paperwork, fill out a big, long application, send it in. My team, anywhere from my accounting team to my coaching team, they would go through all the applications. They would pick the 10 finalists, and then the 10 finalists would present on stage at one of our big live events in front of 1,000 people about their launch and talk, basically sort of debrief their launch and share their experience. And there's a very intense competition. And Thembi what year was that? Was that 2019, I think, probably, or 18?
2018, yeah.
And you were the Launch Club spokesperson of the year, and which was amazing. I mean, you're an amazing spokesperson.
Yeah. So what happened is, the reason why I wanted to mention the whole Launch Club thing is because you win something. So I got 20,000. And I thought to myself, if I stay in Canada, I'm probably going to buy another property or invest or do something. I should use this money and go home and start a business. And the reason is because I still had that calling. I really felt this calling saying, I need to help women in Zimbabwe. I came from an abusive relationship and I just felt that I could help them, help people in Zimbabwe. And I had seen people who were so smart, intelligent women, lawyers, engineers, and they didn't have jobs. And I remember the story which actually touched me the most, that made me want to go back. It was this woman who had committed suicide because she was tired of trading her body to make money. And it's really touched my heart so much. And I was like, And I knew the opportunity of being a virtual assistant. I had hired virtual assistant, and I knew an engineer can be a virtual assistant. They can do this, and there's so much shortage. So that's really what drove me to go back there to Zimbabwe, generally to Africa. It wasn't just to empower women in Zimbabwe, but the whole of Africa. Having said that, though, this is where the purpose thing comes into play. It wasn't an easy journey to say, oh, I'm just going to lift my staff and just go. I have 2 kids. I had to think of that. I had to think of what could happen, what could be with my kids, and how could they be affected with all of this. And so there was definitely some thought process into it. But having said that, I always go back to what's the worst that could happen. And the worst that could have happened is I don't achieve my purpose. And so really I felt this calling and I went back. Yeah.
And so at that time, your son was, I'm trying to do the math, he would have been like 6 years old.
Yeah, he was 5, I think, when we left. Yeah, 2019, because that's the first time we went for 4 months. So we went there for 4 months and I set up this business and I came back to Canada. And then I have since come back 3 years ago. We came back 3 years ago to try to be in physical here and grow the business more.
What was that like for you moving back and for your son to all of a sudden be in Africa, be living there?
It was hard. Those 4 months were probably the hardest 4 months for some reason of my life, even though I grew up in that country. Because what happens, I remember there was some political unrest, and one time my car was stoned. And also just seeing the suffering and the pain and hearing people's stories every day. I remember going to work and you'll hear a story of heartbreak, a story of disappointment, a story of my husband hit me. It was just so heartbreaking. It was the 4 months were really, really hard for me. And I came back so toughened up. I thought I was resilient until I met these women. And I was like, how do you bounce back from what they're telling you, from what they're telling me? And it was just, it was hard, but really also it taught me to be more resilient. Mm-hmm.
And can you just talk about some of the women that you helped?
We had a lot of professionals. It was really mainly professionals. As I said, engineers, doctors, lawyers, and all that stuff. But I do remember this particular situation. This woman, I remember her sending me pictures of her being burnt because her husband had put some hot water on her, and part of her body was burned. It was shocking. But the thing that gave me hope was that she was able to move out. She had the finances. She was making so much money compared to what she would have made if she was maybe a teacher. And so she was able to move out with her son, go get a place to rent, be able to be independent. And that really, when we talk about the purpose and giving up, those are the things that makes you keep going and think, you know what, I cannot give up. Look what I just changed somebody's life. This woman, the abuse was so bad, it could have even killed her. But here she is now living her own and being independent because of this financial freedom.
And that financial freedom, just to underline this point so that everyone gets it, that was because of this training she went through that you gave her on how to be a virtual assistant.
Yes. And so she started working as a virtual assistant, yes. Mm-hmm.
Resilience that you have is something that you've been able to inspire others to have too, right? It winds up because of your story and because of your ability to impact, you've changed so many lives. And what advice would you give to entrepreneurs that are looking to have an impact in the world through their story and through having, people impacted by what they're doing?
I think it goes back to really just being resilient and being able to bounce back, because the journey is not having an impact-driven business is hard. I can tell you that from first-hand experience. Business is hard, full stop, period. business is hard, whether it's impact driven or not impact driven. But when you are also impact driven, there's going to be challenges which you're going to meet. So you really have to be able to bounce back. You know, when I think of resilience, I always think of the bouncy ball. Like you have to be stretching, be able to stretch and really stand for what comes your way, and also have a community, have a mentor, have support. To me, that is the most important thing. I don't think I would still be doing this if I didn't have the support I have, the community I have in Launch Club, and the mentor I have in Jeff Walker. I proudly call him my mentor. There is no way I would have been able to continue doing this. So for an entrepreneur thinking of doing an impact-driven business, you just need to have a mentor, you need to have a community, and you also need to keep going and never give up. Just have that persistence and the ability to bounce back.
Well, and first of all, thank you for those very kind words. You're the kind of student that every would-be mentor would love to have. Could you just talk a little bit about being willing to ask for your true value in the marketplace? And I think specifically like when you went back to Africa and what you were charging for that VA training was a very significant amount of money for the people there, for your clients. Can you just talk a little bit about pricing and money and investing in asking your future clients to invest in themselves?
Just to give you a perspective, when I started the VA business in Zimbabwe, the teacher's salary, I think they were getting paid about $50 to $70 US dollars. And my training fee was $100. So I basically was charging double what a teacher earns.
In an entire month.
Entire month. Yes, entire month. Yeah. And our course was a month long too. But for me, it wasn't about the price. It was about the value. Because I knew that if my student comes to this class and takes it and gets results, they are going to probably make $100 in a week or even less. So for me, it wasn't even about the money. It was about the value. And I think when somebody really realizes the value, when you show your students the value of your program and how it's going to change your life. In Africa, people sell cows. The only cow they have, they will sell it so that their child goes to university because they know how their life will change when they go to university. So when you think of that, and it's really sad when I look at some markets, especially not in the African market, where people usually are talking about the pricing or complaining about the pricing without looking at how their life is going to change. Because it's not really about the price. It's not really about the investment. It's how your life is going to change. For that woman who invested $100, which was a lot of money for them, their return on investment was 10 times or 10x. You know, I always think of how I invested in Jeff Walker's programs as well. Like I look at the return of investment is 10x or even more than that. So you have to think in terms of money. You have to think of what is the value I am getting out of here instead of how much am I paying. It's really never about the value. And honestly, when you are wondering how much you should charge for your clients, look at your program and say, how can it change lives? You could charge $1 million for PLF and you could get away with it because you have students who've made $1 million back from PLF or $2 million. So they've made 2x their return.
Well, there's so many people that are afraid to charge sometimes for what their program can really bring to the market.
Yeah.
Did you feel that too, that you were afraid to charge a lot, and then kind of just do it anyways? Or do you have advice for people who are afraid to charge what they're really worth?
No, I've never been scared to charge. Right now, we charge $300 for our 6-week VA training program. And the first cohort, the girl got paid $400 after 2 weeks. So it's like I could have charged $1,000 for that program. But I've never been afraid to charge, not because of greed. I want to clarify that. It's not because I love money or anything. It's because I know that when people don't pay, they don't pay attention. And when people don't invest enough, they do not get the results. And I know this from life. From example, there's a course I bought not long ago where it was so cheap. But a friend of mine had told me that it was really, really good. I was like, okay, well, it's $97, so I'll just buy it. I have not opened that course ever until last week when I was thinking of doing a podcast, and I'm like, let me go through this. And it's so much value. I'm like, why is he charging $97? It's so much. So that's the thing. Like sometimes people think, oh, I'll charge low so I can get more clients. But be careful of the type of clients you're attracting with that price. I personally believe that when you charge, I told Jeff actually not long ago that sometimes I didn't invest in a program because it was priced too low. I didn't think it was worth it. I don't believe that when something is priced too low, it's worth it. And there's people in your audience who are like me who think, you know what, this is not worth it. I would rather pay $10,000 than pay $1,000 for this.
Yeah, that idea that some people won't buy because your prices are too low, that can be hard for people to wrap their head around. But Chris, what Thembi is talking about is that advanced campaign design program we did. So we did this one 3-day event. We had 10 people come in. We charged $14,000 and we sold out basically immediately. And I had some reasons for the pricing, but Thembi said, I saw that price and I thought it was going to be more for newbies. And if it was $25,000, I would have bought it. So it's a crazy thing to think about. And prices are all relative. So for those who are listening, if you're just starting out, you're probably not thinking about $14,000 or $25,000. But that point that you will have people that will not buy from you because your prices are too low is something that is worth thinking about.
And I think about the people, well, what would you say to people who say, well, you don't understand my market. They're all broke or they're all cheap, or, oh, my people who I'm trying to market to, they would never spend that because maybe we're trapped in our own heads about it. What would you say to people like that?
You should see my market. Remember, I'm marketing to people in Africa, some of them who've never had jobs in their life. And so they find a way. They find a way to pay those programs. But it has nothing to do with the market. I know people who are in weird markets who are selling, they tell me the price. I'm like, what? You sold that for what? And so it has nothing to do with your market. It's really about your value. You have to look at your value. Is your program life-changing? Are you delivering enough value to change somebody's life? Are you delivering enough value to make somebody make 10x that return or 2x that return? If you are, then you qualify to charge that. Because when you look at the stock market, Jeff was in the stock market. He used to, I'm sure you would be very happy with an investment of 2x. So why wouldn't your people be happy with an investment of 2x in your programs?
One thing that I know is part of your story consistently is just, being and feeling empowered. And it's something you have been able to do for yourself and so many other people. And it's not uncommon in an entrepreneurial journey for people to learn how to become empowered. So, and it's essential, right? When you're starting a business to know you have that. What does empowerment really mean, or self-empowerment really mean? And what are some ways for people to start going down that path of being empowered to start their own business or to dare to launch, if you will?
I think empowerment is the realization that you have the ability and the capacity to do something. I think that it's really important to have that realization to say, I can do this, I'm able to do this, or I have the capability to do that. And when you start feeling that, it's a feeling. When you start feeling that and then you put action into it, that really just makes everything flow together and you can start launching. The moment you just feel that, okay, I have the capability, I can do this. Not stop thinking about maybe I can, but like, you know what? I can do this. I'm able to do this. I have the capability and the resources and even the support to do it. That is empowerment enough. And then now you have to take the steps to say, with these resources and the support and the capability I have, what is the next action I can do to now be in power? To me, that's what empowerment really entitles. And I don't see why somebody would wait to launch. You ask me for people to, why would you wait? Like, I think you should ask yourself that question, like, why am I waiting? What is the reason for me to wait for this launch to happen? Why should I wait to change my life for the better?
Where does you mentioned something there in passing, just community, and I have the support around me. And we've talked a bit about that, but so many people are starting off solo, right, on their own. And how much did being around the right people factor into you feeling empowered to start your own business and be able to create success?
I like to say mentors believe in you. It is so hard to be alone out there. It's lonely at the top, they say. It is so hard to be alone out there. You've got friends, you've got family, and trying to go to your friends to ask them or tell them about launching, they'll be like, what? Who did what? And so having that community or having that support gives you the courage to say crazy things and say, people say, you know what, I'm going to leave my job next week after my launch. And people be like, oh, really? Oh, I'm going to make $100,000, in a room. It's not normal to make $100,000 in 7 days. But when you have that community, to support you, it becomes easier and it becomes better.
So is there a difference between just feeling empowered and actually being empowered? Do you think there's a difference there?
Yes, a huge difference. Feeling empowered is that that idea of I feel I can do this, I can do this, I can do it. But being empowered is taking the action to do the stuff. Like, what action are you doing? Are you really empowered enough to take the action, or are you just having the feeling? Feelings are great. Feelings are great because they make you feel good, but they can only take you so far. They're just a feeling. When you take action, when you start taking the necessary steps to change your life and to go from A to B or A to Z, that's when you are empowered. A lot of people feel empowered, but very few people are empowered because most people don't take action. They're stuck in the feeling, in the emotion, and in the thing instead of the doing.
And so many people, I think, that we can get addicted to getting that feeling of empowerment instead of actually being empowered and doing it, right? I mean, if you've ever seen people who just like buy program after program or attend event after event, but they never really get to the point where they say launch or go after that next thing. I think, how do you get to that being empowered, just taking action?
One of the favorite things I had Jeff once say, it was be a creator, not a consumer. And it's so easy to get into the consumption mode because consumption is easy. You're just sitting there and consuming. You need to start creating. You need to start, for you to get results in any way and in any environment, you need to start creating. And how do you do that? By surrounding yourself with other people who are creating. It's so easy to try to create alone, but it's hard because you don't have the support. I am a big proponent of having a community and support that helps you so that you can create better. If you have other people, if you're surrounded by other people, I'm in a mastermind with Jeff. And in that mastermind, like I was in Durango not long ago, and you're hearing people telling you stuff, and someone says, I want to take my business from this million to that million. I was like, what? Why am I not thinking that big? And so when I had that, it was like she lit fire under me, and I just like, no, I am not letting go. And entrepreneurs were competitive. We're very competitive. So when you see other people doing, you just want to do too. But it's hard to see other people doing when you're in your own little cocoon and not surrounded by others.
When I was in sales, we would have these big conferences where we would have a count up where people would be like, oh, you sold this much and this much and this much for a week or 2 weeks, or we would call them push weeks, competition, right? And I always found there was 2 reactions to that. There were people that would be super inspired, and then there would be people who would be like, oh no, I could never do that. I would try to get people to always consider, why not me? Like, what's different about, like, is there really a big difference between them and me? Like, what? And I think that when we just hear like, oh, I built $1 million business or I built a huge thing, we can just say, well, that's them. That's not who I am. Do you have advice? What would you say to those people who are saying like, there's no way I could be that person, or that's for them, it's not for me?
I've had launches where I've had 0 sales. 0. And I could have just sat and said, you know what? That's it. I have 0 sales. I am done. But I kept trying and trying. I remember I was doing a launch recently for a coaching program. I tried different emails. Some of them didn't work. And I finally did one which worked and brought in quite a significant amount. And so it's not really about those people are doing $1 million. The difference between somebody who's doing $1 million and the difference between somebody who's not is because they've tried so many times. They have tried and kept going and going and going. They never gave up. I know a friend of mine who literally launches every week. Every week you get an email from him launching. And that person, you can tell that they're getting results and don't think that all their launches are making money. Some of them are 0 probably, but they never stop. And I think the secret is to never stop and to keep going. Just because somebody built $1 million business doesn't mean they have $0 launch. They do still get some launches that flop. They might not be $0, but they still do get some launches that flop.
Yeah, pushing past that failure. Failure is just another learning opportunity, the chance to.
Yeah, it doesn't describe you. It doesn't describe who you are. I think people personalize failure and they personalize everything that happens to them, they say, but it's not to you. It's not happening to you. It's happening for you. It's something for you to learn. It's a learning experience. And what can you take from that and learn?
You've invested in yourself so many times too, to grow, to gain new skills, to continue to be empowered and become the person you are. Why should people invest in themselves like that?
Other than the return on investment, there's something about growing. You know, as human beings, we were not just born to be stiff and not grow. When you invest in yourself, you don't grow. I mean, obviously, you get a good return on investment, but you also grow mentally, physically, and emotionally. I feel like, to me, business and being in a mastermind with Jeff has probably been one of the best personal development courses I've taken. And I don't think I would have ever received that outside working in a hospital as a nurse and doing nothing. You know, it's personal development. And when you grow, not only do you impact people around you, but you also start to have that ripple effect and spread that impact. And it just changes your life and changes everybody's life around you. So it's really about growing, and also the friendships. I have to say that the community I have built from Launch, my best friends are now from Launch Club. It's weird to say. I actually was telling this to somebody this morning, that my best friends are from my mastermind. It's weird because I didn't join this mastermind for friends. I joined this mastermind because I wanted to learn. But every time I have a problem, I have a headache, I have something going on in my personal life, the first person I'm reaching out to is in the mastermind.
Well, Jeff, what do you think? Should we do a taco break?
I think we should.
All right, awesome. Well, for this, we're going to do a quick 2-minute taco break. All right, Thembi? And this is where we're going to ask you some mild questions about tacos, and we're going to get them steadily spicier as we move up here. But one of our first questions that we always ask is hard shell tacos or soft shell tacos?
I don't like to do hard things. Why would I torture myself cracking a hard taco? Soft shell all the way.
Soft shell all the way. Nice. All right. What about, would you want a mild, medium, or spicy taco?
Mild.
Mm-hmm. Great. And are you putting guacamole or no guacamole?
Do I have an option of salsa?
Salsa is an option too, but is that a no to guacamole?
Okay, I'll just take guacamole then if there's no salsa.
You can do both.
You can do both. Okay, yeah.
I'll do both.
If you could only eat tacos for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, which mealtime would you choose?
Lunch
tacos. That's a good one. Would you choose to do taco yoga or taco meditations?
Whew, that's interesting. Taco meditation, I guess. I wasn't expecting that one.
Chris always throws some curveballs.
If you could create a taco inspired dance move, what would you call it?
Taco inspired dance move. Can I call it salsa?
Oh, that's good, right? That's already a great dance move, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
If you could have a taco with any human in the world, who would it be?
Maybe Oprah. I'll go for Oprah.
Oprah's a good one. And if you could deliver tacos to any historical event, what historical event would you have delivered tacos to?
I think Obama's inauguration. I could have been the delivery girl there.
All right. Well, thanks for doing the 2-minute taco break there. Well, Thembi, this has been so awesome, and it's always an inspiration to talk to you. But with Dare to Launch, I wanted to, we have all sorts of listeners. We have people beginning, starting their business, people who are in the middle in the journey right now of growing their business. We have people who are already really, looking to grow their impact in their markets. And so I wanted to give you a chance to speak to them about one, like, what is really launch life meaning to you, and why should people dare to launch?
I'm going to answer this differently first, and then kind of just come back to that. I want to say what launch life is not. I think people think launch life is sitting by the beach sipping margaritas every day. That's not launch life to most of us. Launch life is really living the life you've always dreamt of. And whatever that is, it could be spending time with your children. It could be taking care of your elderly parents. It could be living in Africa, escaping Canadian winters. It could be, that is what the launch life is about. Sipping margaritas does get boring and does get tiring. And it's really not what everybody, when they start their launch journey, wants. Nobody says, oh, my goal is to sit by the beach and drink margaritas. It's usually, I want to pay off debt. I want to take care of my parents. I want to help my children go to school without debt. I want to buy a house. And that is launch life. That is when you achieve those things, that is launch life. And it's not something that you're going to achieve and say, I finally reached launch life. Now I can sit down and relax. It's going to be a journey. And I think that's really what makes this entrepreneurship so interesting, because it's not in one instance thing. It's a journey. It's a journey that we've been going through over the years since I met Jeff Walker and since I started my entrepreneurship journey. And it is so exciting, despite the fact that sometimes you have sleepless nights thinking, oh, the launch didn't turn out well. It is so exciting. And that growth is just something that we aspire for and we wish for. And to me, that is launch life. It's not about just launching. It's about how your life will change and how other people's lives will change. When you are launching, you're not launching for yourself, but you're launching for other people as well. So I want to give you an example. If Jeff had not launched, I wouldn't be here right now talking to you. I wouldn't even be in South Africa right now talking to you. I wouldn't have this kind of lifestyle I have right now. But because of that one launch, which he did and attracted me, he changed my life. So you are changing other. It's not even just about you now. It's a bigger thing. It's bigger than you. It's like, you're tapping into the universe now and saying, I am helping the world. I am making a bigger impact. And that's really what launching is all about, like making a bigger impact. Do you think of the people Jeff has impacted in the world? Do you think of the people in our mastermind? Like, their lives wouldn't be where they are if he had not launched. I think of these women in Africa who I have helped, who work amazing jobs, as virtual assistants. They wouldn't be there if I had not launched. So when you are actually not launching, I want to go back to the statement I shared earlier on. When you are not taking action and helping other people, you kind of being, it's it's a bit of a selfish, I don't like to use the word selfish, but it is a bit of a selfish act when you're keeping that inner voice in you, when you're not keeping that message, that life that you can change other people inside you and not impacting other people and sharing it with the world. You need to share it with the world. It could be about health. Somebody could die because they didn't hear your message. So think of that. Like, how is your life changing other people, and how is that launch going to change other people? If it's going to change other people's lives, you have to launch. You need to dare to launch.
Thembi, this has been so great. Thank you for coming on our show today. If people want to learn more from you or hear more from you, where should they go?
Thembi Bheka, which is basically my name.com. That's where you can find more about me and what I do lately. Also, you can follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, and on YouTube. I've been quite active on YouTube lately. So, yes. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we'll link that in the show notes as well. Well, Launch family, thank you so much for listening. And we hope this conversation inspires you to dare to launch.